The story begins in a wealthy town filled with mansions, cars, and people who believed money was everything. In the middle of this glamorous world lived a girl named Emily Carter, who was often treated like an outsider. Emily was quiet, dressed simply, and carried herself with humility. She didn't wear designer clothes like the other girls. She didn't throw parties or boast about her lifestyle. Instead, she walked through life with a calm smile, holding secrets nobody knew. Her classmates at university whispered behind her back, "Look at her clothes, probably second-hand. She never joins us at the cafe. Maybe she can't afford it." They laughed, clicked pictures secretly, and shared cruel jokes online. Emily never replied. She never argued. She just lowered her gaze, adjusted her notebook, and walked away. The more silent she stayed, the more they mocked her. One girl, Chloe, was the loudest. She belonged to a rich family and loved humiliating Emily. "Why are you even here, Emily? This is not a charity school." "Oh, wait, maybe it is for you." Laughter erupted every time Chloe opened her mouth. Even professors noticed Emily's simple appearance. Some doubted her abilities. "Miss Carter, are you sure you can handle this course? It's quite advanced." Emily only nodded and replied respectfully, "Yes, sir. I'll do my best." Outside university, the treatment wasn't any better. In cafes, people judged her worn-out shoes. At parties, she was ignored. In conversations, she was invisible, but what they didn't know was that Emily wasn't weak. She was patient. She was waiting. Behind closed doors, Emily was different. She lived in a small rented apartment, but her desk was filled with books on business, law, and finance. She spent nights studying, preparing, and building something no one could imagine. Her neighbors often saw her light burning at 2 a.m. "That girl never sleeps," they whispered. But Emily didn't care. She had a vision, and visions required sacrifice. One afternoon, while everyone was mocking her in the cafeteria, Emily overheard something. Chloe said loudly, "One day, when I inherit my father's company, I'll throw a party and make sure Emily is the maid serving drinks." Everyone laughed. Emily looked at them, her eyes calm but sharp. For a second, Chloe felt uneasy under that gaze, but she brushed it off and continued laughing. Emily whispered to herself, "We'll see. Chloe, we'll see who serves whom." Nobody knew that Emily carried a truth that could change everything. Years ago, when Emily's parents died in a car crash, she was left with nothing, or so people believed. But in reality, her grandfather, Richard Carter, was one of the most influential businessmen in the city. He had deliberately kept Emily's identity hidden, wanting her to grow up strong, independent, and humble before inheriting the empire. Emily respected his wish. She never revealed her last name fully, never boasted about her connections. She allowed people to mock her because she knew the day of revelation would come. The countdown had already begun. One evening, Emily received a letter. It was from her grandfather's lawyer, informing her that in 6 months, she would legally inherit not just his wealth, but also his mansion, companies, and all his assets. Emily read the letter slowly. Her hands trembled, not with fear, but with determination. She whispered, 6 months, just 6 months more. From that moment, she decided to let the mockery continue. Every cruel word, every insult, every laugh would become fuel for her. She didn't fight back because she didn't need to. The world would soon see who Emily Carter truly was. And when that day arrived, regret would spread like fire. Emily's life in the university looked ordinary. But in reality, she was preparing for something extraordinary. Every evening after her classes ended, she went back to her small apartment. The walls were plain, the furniture was cheap, but her desk was filled with notes, files, and books. She didn't waste time scrolling social media like others. She didn't join parties or gossip groups. Instead, she spent hours studying contracts, business strategies, and investment plans. She learned coding basics, accounting principles, and leadership skills. Her laptop was old, but it carried thousands of pages of her work. Sometimes she sat in front of the mirror and practiced speeches. "Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today I will present." She adjusted her tone, her confidence, her expressions. She wasn't just learning for herself. She was preparing for the stage life would soon put her on. Meanwhile, at the university, the mocking continued. Chloe and her group of friends were relentless. One day, during a group project, Chloe sneered, "Emily, you can handle the cleaning of the presentation slides. That's all you're good for." The others laughed. Emily stayed silent, but in her mind she thought, "You will remember this day, Chloe." Another time at a seminar, a professor asked Emily a tough question. Chloe whispered loudly, "She doesn't even know the answer. She's useless." Emily calmly answered the question with clarity, surprising even the professor. But Chloe rolled her eyes and muttered, "She probably memorized it. No talent at all." No matter what Emily did, people twisted it into an insult. Still, she didn't break. At night, she opened her grandfather's letters again. He had left her not just wealth, but wisdom. His words echoed in her mind. "Emily, strength is not in shouting back at those who mock you. Strength is in proving them wrong with your success. Be patient, my child. Your silence will become your loudest victory." These words gave her courage. 3 months passed. The inheritance date was getting closer. Emily secretly met with lawyers and financial advisors. She signed documents quietly, transferring shares into her name. She visited the mansion discreetly to prepare for her move. She even met with board members of her grandfather's company, who all respected her deeply because Richard Carter had spoken highly of her. But she didn't reveal any of this to the university crowd. To them, she was still the poor girl with cheap clothes. One afternoon, Emily overheard something shocking. Chloe was bragging loudly in the cafeteria. "My father's company is expanding. When he retires, everything will be mine. And when that happens, I'll crush anyone who ever stood in my way. Especially losers like Emily." Her friends clapped and cheered. Emily walked past them quietly, holding her tray of food. Chloe smirked and called out, "Hey, Emily. Maybe when I become the CEO, I'll hire you as my maid. You can bring me coffee every morning." The cafeteria roared with laughter. Emily paused, turned her head slightly, and gave Chloe the faintest smile. "Careful what you wish for, Chloe. Life has a strange way of surprising us." Chloe frowned, confused, but Emily walked away calmly. That night, Emily looked at the calendar. Only 3 months remained until her inheritance became public. She whispered to herself, "Let them laugh. Their time is ending." In those 3 months, she doubled her efforts. She attended secret workshops, met influential leaders, and even pitched small business ideas that impressed investors. She grew her network silently, like a storm building far away on the horizon. But the mocking didn't stop. At the annual university event, Chloe deliberately pushed Emily aside to take the spotlight. She announced on stage, "Some of us are born leaders, some are born losers. And we all know who belongs in which category." Everyone laughed, pointing indirectly at Emily. Emily stood at the back, clapping politely. But inside, her heart whispered, "Laugh now. The curtain is about to rise. And when it does, you won't be the star. You'll be the joke." The night ended, but Emily's resolve grew stronger. One day her lawyer called. "Miss Carter, all documents are finalized. In exactly 3 months, you will legally inherit the entire Carter estate, including the mansion and controlling shares of Carter Enterprises." Emily closed her eyes and breathed deeply. The time was near. She looked at her reflection in the mirror, her eyes sharp with determination. "They think I'm invisible. They think I'm weak. But soon, the world will see who Emily Carter truly is." The day of the inheritance announcement was approaching like a silent drumbeat. Emily had spent months preparing, building herself in silence while others mocked her. But now the countdown had begun. The mansion was ready. The legal documents were finalized. Soon, Emily would no longer be the quiet, overlooked student. She would be the rightful heir to the Carter empire. But at the university, Chloe's cruelty had reached its peak. One morning, Emily entered the lecture hall and found her seat covered with sticky notes. Each note had words like servant, poor girl, invisible, and loser. Chloe and her friends sat nearby, laughing hysterically. Chloe smirked and said loudly, "Don't worry, Emily. We just decorated your seat the way you deserve." Emily removed each note silently, stacked them neatly, and placed them in her bag. She didn't cry. She didn't argue. She just looked at Chloe once, her eyes calm, almost pitying. That look made Chloe uncomfortable. Later that day, in the cafeteria, Chloe announced to everyone, "Big news, everyone. My father's company is about to merge with another giant firm. Soon, I'll be one of the richest women in this city. And some people here," she glanced at Emily, "will always stay at the bottom." Her friends clapped, cheering for her fake confidence. Emily, sitting quietly with her coffee, simply said, "Congratulations, Chloe. I hope you enjoy the spotlight while it lasts." The calmness in her voice unsettled everyone. Chloe frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" Emily just smiled softly. "You'll find out soon." Meanwhile, outside of the university, Emily was transforming into someone else entirely. She spent weekends at the mansion, walking through the grand halls, memorizing the portraits of her ancestors. She studied company reports, learned about the employees, and built relationships with key managers who admired her humility and intelligence. Mr. Howard, her grandfather's oldest business partner, once told her, "Emily, your grandfather always believed in you. He used to say, 'My granddaughter may be quiet, but she has the fire of a leader.' And I see that fire in your eyes now." Those words became her fuel. At night, she stood on the balcony of the mansion, looking at the city lights. She whispered, "Soon they'll know, not because I shouted, but because I proved myself." Back at the university, tension was building. Rumors began spreading. Some students noticed Emily leaving in expensive cars. Others saw her talking to influential people at high-end cafes. Whispers floated around. "Is Emily rich? No way. She wears second-hand clothes. Maybe she's hiding something." Chloe heard these rumors too, but she laughed them off. "Emily, rich, please. That girl can't even afford designer shoes. Don't believe the nonsense." Still, the whispers didn't stop. And deep inside, Chloe felt uneasy. One afternoon, Chloe cornered Emily in the library. "Listen," she hissed. "I don't know what game you're playing, but stop acting like you're something you're not." Emily looked up from her book, her voice calm and steady. "I'm not acting, Chloe. I'm just being myself. The real me will shock you very soon." Chloe's face turned red. "You're bluffing," Emily smiled faintly. "Am I?" The day of the reveal finally arrived. Emily's lawyer had invited her to a private meeting in the city's Grand Hotel. As she entered the conference hall, she saw businessmen, lawyers, and reporters gathered. The inheritance was about to be made public. Chloe, by chance, was also at the same hotel for her father's business event. When she heard people whispering about Richard Carter's heir, her curiosity grew. She pushed through the crowd to see who it was, and then the doors opened. Emily walked in, dressed elegantly in a navy blue suit, her hair tied neatly, her presence commanding. She didn't look like the quiet, bullied girl from the university. She looked like a leader. The lawyer stood up. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are here today to honor the will of the late Richard Carter. His entire estate, including the Carter Mansion and controlling shares of Carter Enterprises, has been officially passed down to his granddaughter, Emily Carter. Gasps filled the room. Cameras flashed. Reporters scribbled notes. Chloe froze. Her mouth opened slightly. Her face drained of color. She whispered under her breath, "Emily, Carter." Emily stepped forward, shaking hands with board members, speaking with confidence. She didn't even glance at Chloe, who stood in the corner, trembling with disbelief. The girl she mocked as a servant was now the owner of a mansion and one of the most powerful women in the city. Later, as Emily left the hall surrounded by well-wishers, she caught Chloe's eye for just a moment. Emily's gaze was calm, almost kind, but filled with unshakable strength. Without saying a word, she conveyed the message. "This is who I truly am." Chloe's knees felt weak. For the first time in her life, she had nothing to say. That night, Emily sat in her mansion's study. Reflecting on the day, she whispered to herself, "It's only the beginning. The world has seen my name, but soon they'll see my power." Her journey was far from over, but the first battle was won, and Chloe, she lay in her bedroom, staring at the ceiling, haunted by the truth. Her arrogance had blinded her, and now, her biggest humiliation was just beginning. The university buzzed with whispers. News outlets had already published the headline, "Emily Carter inherits Carter Enterprises and family mansion." Students scrolled through their phones, jaws dropping. Some couldn't believe it. Others laughed nervously, realizing they had mocked someone who now stood far above them. But Chloe? She was burning. When she walked into the campus the next morning, she expected admiration, the usual compliments. Instead, everyone's eyes followed Emily, who walked calmly through the hallway, dressed in a crisp white blouse and tailored pants. Her quiet confidence commanded respect. Someone whispered loudly, "That's Emily Carter, the new owner of Carter Enterprises." Another muttered, "We treated her like nothing, and she's a millionaire heiress." Chloe's stomach twisted. Rage boiled inside her. She marched straight toward Emily, blocking her path. "So it's true," Chloe spat. "You've been hiding all this from us, playing poor to make us look stupid." Emily stopped, her gaze steady. "I didn't hide anything. I never pretended to be poor. You just assumed I was beneath you." The crowd around them grew larger, eager to witness the confrontation. Chloe laughed bitterly. "Do you think money makes you better than me?" Emily's voice was calm, measured, but sharp as a blade. "No, Chloe. What makes me better is that I never needed to step on others to feel powerful. I let my work, my values, and now my inheritance speak for themselves." Gasps echoed. Chloe's face flushed crimson. For once, her words failed her. 2 days later, Emily hosted a charity gala at the Carter Mansion, her first public event as the heir. Politicians, business leaders, celebrities, and even university professors attended. The mansion glowed under crystal chandeliers, every corner whispering of history and wealth. Emily stood at the center of it all, elegant and poised, greeting guests with grace. She announced donations for underprivileged students, scholarships for women, and funds for hospitals. Her voice carried strength and compassion, leaving the audience in awe. And then Chloe arrived. She had forced her way in through her father's connections, wearing a glittering silver gown, desperate to outshine Emily. But no one paid attention. All eyes were on Emily, the girl Chloe once humiliated, now the star of the night. Chloe approached Emily with a forced smile. "Nice party," she sneered softly, just for Emily to hear. "But don't forget, you're still the same quiet, pathetic girl who sat in the back of the class." Emily looked at her, calm and unbothered. "Maybe, but tonight you're the guest in my mansion. Think about that." The words hit Chloe like thunder. Her fake smile vanished. Later in the evening, as cameras flashed, Emily stepped onto the stage. "Good evening, everyone," she began, her voice echoing through the grand hall. "My grandfather believed in kindness, humility, and strength. He left me this inheritance not to flaunt wealth, but to continue his vision, to help others rise. The audience applauded. Emily paused, her eyes briefly scanning the crowd until they landed on Chloe. She continued, "For years, some people looked at me as weak, unworthy, even invisible. But I stand here today as proof that no one should be underestimated." Gasps and claps filled the room. Cameras zoomed in. The line went viral within hours. Chloe felt the ground slipping beneath her feet. People were whispering, looking at her knowingly. She became the symbol of arrogance, while Emily became the symbol of strength. After the event, reporters swarmed Emily outside the mansion. "Miss Carter, how does it feel to go from being treated like a nobody to becoming the owner of Carter Enterprises?" Emily smiled gently. "It feels like justice, not revenge. Life has a way of turning tables. All I did was stay true to myself." The reporters applauded her grace. Meanwhile, Chloe, standing at a distance, realized her biggest nightmare had come true. She wasn't just overshadowed, she was erased from relevance. That night, alone in her room, Emily looked at her reflection in the mirror. She remembered every insult, every laugh, every cruel word Chloe had thrown at her. But instead of bitterness, she felt peace. She whispered to herself, "Revenge isn't about destroying others. It's about proving yourself so strongly that they can never ignore you again." And with that, Emily closed her eyes, ready for the next chapter of her journey. Not as a victim, but as the woman who had risen beyond every chain placed on her. The storm of whispers did not end after the gala. Instead, it spread like wildfire. Social media buzzed with Emily's story. News channels replayed her speech, calling her the silent heiress who rose above hate. Emily's name trended worldwide. Hashtags like Emily Carter, From Servant to Heiress, and Power of Grace filled timelines. Meanwhile, Chloe's name also trended, but for the wrong reasons. People dug up old videos of her mocking Emily at university. Students shared stories of how she humiliated others. Soon Chloe became the face of arrogance and cruelty. Her father, embarrassed, withdrew her from several business circles. Invitations stopped arriving. Slowly, doors that once opened easily for Chloe slammed shut. At the university, things changed drastically. Professors who once ignored Emily now praised her determination. Students who laughed at her now admired her. Emily, however, carried herself with quiet dignity, never boasting about her power. One afternoon, as Emily walked through campus, she noticed Chloe sitting alone on a bench. Her once flawless makeup was smudged, and her expensive clothes could not hide her broken spirit. Chloe looked up as Emily approached. For the first time, there was no arrogance in her eyes, only exhaustion. "You won," Chloe said softly, bitterness laced in her tone. "Are you happy now?" Emily stood still, her gaze calm. "This was never about winning, Chloe. It was about proving that cruelty doesn't define anyone's worth." Chloe scoffed. "Easy for you to say. You have money, power, everything now." Emily's voice was steady. "I had nothing when you humiliated me, but I still stood back up. That's something no amount of money can buy." Chloe's eyes filled with tears. She looked away, unable to hold Emily's gaze. For the first time, she realized what true strength looked like. Weeks later, Emily officially took her place as CEO of Carter Enterprises. Her first decision was bold. She launched a scholarship program for students from humble backgrounds, ensuring no one like her would ever feel invisible again. The press applauded her vision. Magazines featured her story under titles like "The Heiress Who Changed the Rules" and "Power with Grace, Emily Carter's Legacy." At the launch event, Emily stood before hundreds of students. "You are not defined by what others think of you," she said. "You are defined by what you choose to become." The crowd erupted in applause. Chloe attended the event quietly. Hiding at the back, she watched Emily shine on stage. her voice inspiring others. A pang of regret hit Chloe's chest. Regret for every cruel word, every chance wasted. Later she walked up to Emily nervously. "Emily," she began, her voice shaking. I'm sorry. For everything. I never thought it would come to this." Emily looked at her carefully. Then she smiled faintly. "Chloe, apologies don't erase the past, but they can shape the future. What matters now is who you choose to be from here on." Chloe lowered her head, humbled. For the first time, she felt something she never had before. Respect. For Emily, and maybe even for herself. That night, Emily returned to the Carter mansion. She walked through the grand halls that once felt empty and cold. Now, they felt alive with purpose. She stood by a large portrait of her grandfather, the man who left her this legacy. "Grandfather," she whispered, "I hope I've made you proud. I didn't fight for revenge. I fought for respect." The chandelier above glowed warmly, as if in silent approval. Emily smiled. She no longer carried the weight of humiliation, nor the desire for revenge. She had transformed her pain into strength, her silence into a voice that echoed everywhere. Months later, at the university graduation ceremony, Emily was invited as the keynote speaker. She stood at the podium, facing a sea of young faces filled with hope. "My story is simple," she began. "I was mocked, ignored, treated as if I didn't belong. But instead of letting it destroy me, I let it build me. Remember this: your worth is not given by others. It is claimed by you." Thunderous applause shook the hall. Chloe, sitting among the graduates, clapped with tears in her eyes. She knew she had been the villain in Emily's story. But maybe, just maybe, she could start her own story now. One built on humility, not arrogance. As Emily walked off stage, she felt peace. Her journey was complete. She had gone from being treated like a servant to inheriting not just a mansion or a company, but a legacy of resilience, dignity, and hope. And in that moment, Emily knew this was the sweetest victory of all.